My name is Kenneth Lukwagandason, your host, and today we'll be looking at the status of the coffee subsector in Uganda and the emerging issues that the farmers need to know. Well, coffee remains one of our key foreign income earner. Looking at the historical perspective, so many people in this country have grown and benefited from coffee, and it continues to bring in a lot of money. But a number of issues have kept on coming up that the Uganda Coffee Development Authority intends to respond to. One of the things that has come up is the new regulations that are coming in from the European Union, which is one of our major markets where we export our coffee. So today we'll be focusing on that particular issue, but also the gentleman from the Uganda Coffee Development Authority will be available to respond to any questions or comments that you put across. Let me introduce my guest, Mr. Robert Nangasta, Extension Manager, Uganda Coffee Development Authority. I hope I've pronounced well that name.
Oh yeah, sure. Thank you very much. My name is Robert Nangasa. Good evening, listeners, and good evening, coffee enthusiasts. Of course, I'm here to share with you and to respond to the questions that might arise. I'm happy to do so. So thank you very much.
All right, and very quickly, let's begin with an outlook of the sector itself. Like I already stated in my opening remarks, that coffee has been one of our major foreign income earner. It has been grown in different parts of this country. Over time, different types have come up, different types of coffee have come up. There have been challenges and opportunities. Where is the sector as we speak now?
Thank you very much, Mr. Lukwago. The coffee sector in Uganda currently, I must say, is booming. It's doing great, and I think farmers are smiling all their way from the gardens to their homes. And first of all, I want to share with you the fact that 1.8 million coffee farming households are found in Uganda, perhaps one of the largest number in the world.
1.8 million households
engaged in coffee farming, and coffee directly or indirectly benefits over 12 million coffee farmers or households. So in terms of exports, the financial year 2023-24, we have seen an increase in exports, which has gone up to 6.3 million 60 kilogram bags, fetching about 1.15 trillion US dollars.
1.15 trillion.
Yes. And that's really a good boost to the coffee industry. Coffee has been and remains the biggest contributor in terms of the gross domestic product. I think we also saw today in the new vision that coffee in the last month, only the exports alone contributed the highest, just second to gold. But why coffee is very important is because money from coffee directly goes to the pockets of the farmers. So in terms of boosting economic prosperity of farmers, coffee is something that is one should really venture into, because it has a direct link to addressing poverty in the household.
All right, and there was a time when an ambitious campaign was launched to increase the number of bags that are produced in Uganda, but also the number of bags that are exported from this country. How far have we gone with that campaign?
This is a strategic target according to the coffee roadmap of 20 million bags by 2030. And I must say that we, as a country, we are still on track, because by this time, indeed, by having at least 8 million bags produced.
8 million bags?
Yes, but total exports are coming to 6.3. I think we are on track, and we are optimistic that we shall meet our ambitious target of 20 million bags by 2030.
20 million bags exported or produced? Produced.
Yes.
All right. And of course, as UCDA, your mandate is to ensure that coffee is, the growth of coffee in a country is sustained, but also, expanded. One of the things you've been doing as UCDA has been a supply of seedlings across the country, but there have been concerns from farmers. Some people have been complaining their seedlings are nowhere to be seen. How will you meet this target when such challenges keep on coming up? Have you been able to sort out these issues?
Well, the challenge of limited supply of seedlings is real, but maybe I should first tackle the ways through which we can increase productivity
and what you're doing as
expansion. One of the ways through which productivity is going to increase is through adoption of good agronomic practices. If we could do, for example, stamp the old diseased coffee trees, they are capable of giving a much higher yield than a new, and if well managed, they can give a very good harvest from one coffee tree. We in this country we have trees which are more than 50 years old.
Of coffee?
Yes. And those trees are capable of giving us much higher yield if they are stamped or rejuvenated.
How do you do that?
So stamping coffee is basically you go and identify a coffee tree, which is first of all you look at what it is giving you at that time, and then if it is below the expectation, even with good management practices, you simply cut it back and then you allow it to grow back and look after it very well. So the other way is through we know at the moment is we have limited application of fertilizers and our soils are greatly depleted. So again, that's another way we could increase productivity, or that's one way we are going to ensure that we increase productivity. Then management of pests and diseases largely, but also we have seen a large number of the absentee residents in the villages who have been leaving some land idle. They have been able to free that land to plant coffee, and the demand indeed for the seedling has been greatly high, and but because there has been a change of policy by government to see that seedlings now are sourced through the PDM, many farmers are encouraged to find a way to buy their own coffee, the coffee seedlings, to be able to meet the requirements. But that's still a challenge, and we have brought this to the attention of the policymakers to understand that actually the funds through PDM cannot directly cannot be accessed by people who live beyond a certain level of poverty, above 39% of poverty. So we have to find another way to see that seedlings are accessed by those people, at least at a more cheaper price, or affordable price.
All right. As we push on the agenda of growing more coffee in Uganda, we keep on hearing developments that keep on coming. Now, there's a lot of talk about the European Union regulations that are coming up in regard to the growth of coffee. Can you briefly tell us what exactly is going on and how is this likely to impact on growth of coffee, or even the way we trade when it comes to coffee?
Currently, like you mentioned, we have the EUDR, which is the European Union Deforestation Free Products Regulation, which aims at ensuring that supply chains, like for coffee, are free from deforestation. That you don't cut a forest to plant coffee. That law was enacted on 5th December 2022, and it comes into effect in December 30th, 2024.
Next year.
this year.
This year. Oh,
30th
this year.
December
30th.
2024.
Mm.
So basically, the law aims at halting emission of greenhouse gases, reducing global warming, deforestation, and biodiversity conservation. So it is a law which is there in good faith, because now if you look at the statistics so far from the Global Forest Watch, the online statistics, Uganda by 2020 had almost deforested area which is equivalent to 297 kilometers of forest area. In 2021 alone, about 737 square kilometers of forest were cut down. So, well, this is something we see as brought on us, but the effects of climate are real. So we must also take initiative to address this matter.
So what are the requirements when you look at the Ugandan coffee subsector? What are the requirements the farmers need to take into account in regard to this EUDR?
First of all, the EU requirements emphasize 3 areas. That the coffee, any given batch of coffee should be traced back to the plot of land where it is grown. So traceability is very, very key here. And how do you attain traceability? You must be able to get the land use map of the area, and this is obtained by using high satellite imagery, high resolution satellite imagery, being able to pick the polygons of that given area if the land is above 4 hectares. Below 4 hectares, you will be using the geopoint or the geolocations. So the information you obtain, or the geo coordinates, when they are obtained, they are overlaid on the forest map to be able to determine whether the plot of land is found in a deforested area after 2020, December 2020, which was the cutoff date then. So the law acts in retrospective.
So what happens when it is established that your coffee was actually grown as a result of the afforestation? What happens?
First of all, we have developed protocols in place which emphasize remedial action to ensure that how well we can remediate that. We will engage with the farmer and the local community or the local authorities to ensure that the farmer gets to understand the implications of this. So we will encourage the farmer to at least plant coffee in another area of land which is not affected, because the implications of having that coffee from that given plot of coffee, given plot of land which is non-compliant, has direct consequences, especially for the importer who has the burden of proof to determine whether this coffee is deforestation free or not.
Now, let's look at this issue called traceability. Who will be doing it, and how are we prepared actually to do it? Because I'm looking at a situation where once we fail to actually have traceability, and then we are going to be knocked out of the EU market, which is one of the largest markets for coffee in the world.
Yes, indeed. The EU is the largest market of coffee because the exports, the total exports of Uganda, 63% over the last 10 years are to the EU countries, the 27 EU countries. So having 63 means that you have been having only 37 sold to other countries. So for the coffee market, you will not just shift anyhow, but you need time, because the consumers are located in those countries majorly. So what are we doing to ensure we trace this coffee? We have adopted a pre-competitive approach or collaboration with all the industry players to work out ways in which we are developing systems which can trace this coffee, but also building a capacity for everyone not to be excluded from the process.
All right. We've been, struggling with the issues of standards. Farmers not knowing how to handle coffee, issues of drying the coffee on the ground, not having enough, coffee hullers, and also avenues of adding value. Now, when you bring in this aspect of traceability, it must be costly. Uganda Coffee Development Authority, are you the ones taking the lead? Have you been given the necessary funding to actually do this work? Because the cutoff date is really very soon, just in December.
To achieve traceability, first of all, the biggest challenge is in terms of registering, having a common registry for all the coffee farmers and the value chain actors. So we are working day and night to ensure that that takes place, because the registry is the precursor for putting up a traceability system. And as I mentioned, that we are already engaged in developing systems which are already available. Since 2021, November, the National Coffee Act 2021 was passed, which mandated UCDA, or Uganda Coffee Development Authority, to register all the value chain actors and the farmers inclusive. So from then, UCDA developed the geospatial M&E system and farmer registration app, which is capable of capturing all the data needed to feed into the traceability system. So again, with the support from industrial players, as I said, working collaboratively, we have attracted some funding from, first of all, government has already committed resources, about 13.9 billion for this financial year. And then in addition, from the agribusiness development, that is ABI development, funded by the Royal Danish Embassy, they have also put money aside. So because the timelines are very short, we decided that we engage private companies to go on the ground and register these farmers as quickly as possible. And that is already commencing. Do you have the funding needed? I remember hearing from one stakeholders engagement, which was organized to reflect on this issue, and UCDA was represented there. You had actually asked for something around 24 billion shillings, and you were only given 10 billion to be able to do this work. Are you facilitated to actually deliver on this very important subsector? I think, like I mentioned, one important aspect is the collaborations we have had. We have had a number of bilateral engagements with different stakeholders, the donors. So while we needed about 35 billion to have the registration or the traceability system in place, government was not able to have all the money at once. However, along the way, this support came in through the funding window through the ABI development. But also the major budget for the traceability is the awareness creation, because this is a very contagious issue, as you have mentioned earlier. So we need a lot of awareness creation, we need the coordination, we need the capacity building for traders and for all those involved in the process. So the funding which has been gotten from the private sector, and then also the development partners, is able to at least take us through. But of course, traceability is something very, very expensive to achieve. So, but to start with, we will be able to do all what it takes to comply. It's Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90. A topic of discussion today is the status of the coffee subsector in Uganda and the emerging issues that the farmers need to know. My guest is Mr. Robert Nagasta, Extension Manager, Uganda Coffee Development Authority. And one of the major highlights that we are talking about is the new EU DR requirements for coffee, whereby the European Union now says no one will be allowed to sell coffee to their market if it's traced and found that it was grown as a result of cutting down forests. And this issue has been, highlighted as one of the major threats to the growth of coffee in Uganda. Now, earlier you talked about the law, but also the registration process. The information out there
is that you're registering farmers basically to find a way of actually taxing them. And I think this is one of the reasons why you are likely not to get a very good response from the farmers, even on the app that you talked about.
Oh, yes. I think we need to institute a very, very deep campaign to sensitize the public about these threats. First of all, registration for farmers is actually not because only the EUDR is in place, but initially the National Coffee Act 2021 provided for registration of farmers for purposes of generating planning data. Just imagine when you are in a home and you are expecting visitors and you don't know how many visitors are coming. So you need a budget. You need to know how many visitors are coming. So first of all, the information we collect here will be very, very important for the sector. But also, as we have seen, the EU is not relaxing on this. They really want us to comply. And this information is available in the public domain. So we would encourage everyone not to think otherwise, but to embrace the registration exercise. All right. Registration is free of charge. And it will be conducted by government. So when you go to register a farmer, what exactly are you looking at? What kind of information are you collecting from the farmers so that they can be prepared? Well, the information we are looking at is basic. First of all, we want to know who the farmer's name is, the location of this farmer. But when we get to the coffee farm itself, we will need to collect the geolocation or the geopoints, the longitude and latitude, because I said these are the coordinates are critical in putting in the system to know whether this plot of land was in a forest or not. For larger pieces of land, more than 10 acres, we are looking at the polygon, the different points of land, which will establish the area of land. Maybe I could also explain what a forest is. Most of the land where coffee is growing in this country is arable land. But now, what do we say a forest? A forest is an area of land, a potential area of land spanning more than 1.25 acres with the tree height of more than 5 meters and canopy cover of more than 5%. Whether natural or plantation forest, once it falls under that definition, you are not supposed to cut and plant trees. So how do we strike a balance then? Because as you know, land for settlement, land for agriculture has become small. People have to expand. They have to clear forests to be able to get more land for settlement and even farming. That's a reality. Our population keeps on growing. We need more land. What do we do? But indeed, striking a balance means that you have to reserve some area where you can grow food and where you can conserve biodiversity, because we know the effects of clearing forests. We now have incidences of pests, we have global warming, that the negative impacts of clearing forests are really very big. Maybe because in our country here, people have not experienced real impacts of cutting down trees, but in those countries, actually, if those impacts are here, if we start, actually we are starting to experience them, where somebody plants and completely loses anything because there's no rain, because the pests and the diseases are so prevalent. So we have indeed to strike a balance between us clearing more land for food and also conserving land to have our climate intact. All right, Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90. We need to go for a break. When we return, Mr. Robert Ngasa, the Extension Manager at Uganda Coffee Development Authority, will still be here in the studio to respond to some of your questions. One of the questions that keeps on coming up whenever we are discussing issues to do with climate change is that if the Europeans are asking us to give up something, what are they giving up? Because people will tell you their technology has contributed a lot to the destruction we are seeing as far as climate change is concerned. If we are giving up clearing forests, what are they giving up?
Now, stay tuned to Radio 1 FM 90. We'll continue after this break. Well, thank you so much for staying with us on Spectrum, live on Radio 1 FM 90. My name is Kenneth Lukwagandason, your host, and today we are looking at the status of the coffee subsector in Uganda and the emerging issues that the farmers need to know. My guest is Mr. Robert Gatsa, Extension Manager, Uganda Coffee Development Authority. In the earlier segment, we understood how the coffee subsector is doing in Uganda. We're actually not doing very badly. There was an increase in the number of coffee bags that we exported, 6.3 million kilograms. Those are the bags that we managed to export, and they fetched $1.15 trillion billion dollars.
Yes.
Billion dollars in the 2023-2024 financial year. Now, I asked you a question before we actually wait for the break. This decision that is being imposed on coffee farmers, the reason I'm saying imposed, because hardly will you hear coffee being grown in Europe. So one would say it could be a weapon against countries that are growing coffee, countries that are trying to get out of poverty, using coffee as one of the commodities they sell to the Europeans who badly need it. What are the Europeans giving up? If we are giving up growing coffee, expanding our production to respond to the growing market in Asia and all these other places, what are they giving up?
First of all, I want to correct the impression that we are giving something, they have to give in something.
Did you sit on a table to agree on these issues, really?
One thing is, what the EU is saying is that through our consumption, through their consumption, their contribution to carbon emissions is 10% through their consumption. And that could be through the carbon footprint. So the customers are saying, if we are contributing 10% on greenhouse effects.
Through consuming your coffee.
Through consuming your coffee. What are we doing? Can we find a way of, because customers also have a right and have also values and in terms of what they consume. So they are saying...
That's what they have told you.
Because their consumption is actually increasing climate greenhouse emissions, so they want to find a way to halt that, which will be beneficial to everyone. So in terms of the objectives of why they're bringing this law, I think we have to understand that they want basically to hold their consumption. I mean, to ensure that their consumption does not largely contribute to greenhouse effects. All
right. So we have coffee farmers in different parts of this country. What are you doing to prepare them for this particular situation that is catching up with them?
Again, through concerted effort of all industry stakeholders, the large exporters, the medium and small scale, the cooperatives, we came together to develop the National Action Plan, which has a number of accompanying measures on how to comply. At the moment, we have again gone out to do sensitization on radio. We have started those campaigns, mobilizing them, but also sharing with them to understand the implications of this and how they can still remain active in the trade. So collectively, as with all the industrial players, we are going out there, first of all, to register them, to ensure that they are compliant. So, and we will do a full rollout once the process to have the service providers go out to register all of them. It's going to be a door-to-door campaign. We are going to hold a regional workshop, district workshops. We are going to engage with the district leaders. All the district stakeholders are going to be sensitized and explained to why we need to have this done as quickly as possible.
All right. Yeah. One would ask, is it not possible for somebody to grow coffee even as they keep around some trees, grow the coffee, but within a forest setup to be able to strike a balance?
Okay, I think you are talking about agroforestry, and again, that is not deforestation per se. Actually, what we have been promoting is shade-grown coffee, because coffee is actually a plant that originated from the forest. So if you balance between the trees and the coffee, not necessarily by first cutting a forest, but ideally if you have going to establish a forest, we encourage you to do an intercrop with some recommended trees, shade trees, to provide the shade for the coffee, but also to give other beneficial, that give some benefits to the farmer, but also to the crop. So that interrelationship is what we promote.
All right. In other countries, they're actually paying people for keeping the forests and for growing certain crops. What is the situation like in Uganda? That's what they call, is it carbon credit?
Yes, carbon credits.
Do we have it in Uganda? Is it working? Maybe it will be one of the ways to actually, entice people to keep the forests and forgo growing coffee. Somebody will be earning money in their pocket as long as the trees are there.
Yes, carbon credits is being piloted by a number of development agencies. For example, we have had Solidaridad beginning one project in Kapchorwa and in Southwestern. So some farmers have been paid, but it's something that has not been fully explored. That we would encourage development partners or even government to have bilateral engagements with people who can support this process. So indeed, it's something that is good.
All right. We're going to get some comments coming in from the listeners, and I'll begin with a comment from Okelo Patrick Bonyo, who is listening in from Busega. He says, most of the talk nowadays is about climate change. Is there any support for those who are planting trees? And if so, how are they supported? I am among the people planting trees. Let us promote coffee consumption at home to guarantee the market locally, because these fellows can frustrate the third world countries with sanctions. And he raises a very important issue. Those who are growing trees, we just had a discussion. You just made a comment about it. But there's the issue of promoting local consumption. If the Europeans cannot take our coffee, are you promoting it here at home? What efforts are you putting in place? Earlier on, before we came in studio, there was a colleague you were having a discussion with about how some foreigners actually dominating the coffee business in our country here, and it appears that you people at Coffee Development Authority are not doing enough to promote local consumption.
The challenge of local consumption, I think, to some extent, is also historical. As you know very well, if you moved to most hotels or public places, people are majorly asking for tea instead of coffee. Even when it is, you would hardly find anyone saying we are going for a coffee break. They say tea break. So it is something that we should do, because many people think coffee has some negative impact on their health. So we have started a campaign, especially targeting the youth in schools, in universities.
We are not seeing you.
We have partnerships with, say, for example, Makerere University, Chambugo University. We are building regional coffee hubs, training a number of youth baristas who know really how to brew coffee. And generally in public places, we, like you have seen recently, how we have been promoting coffee at shows countrywide. So it is a culture that we have to work on the mindset of people, and actually also show them that actually drinking coffee has no bad health effects. Maybe you have to start taking in moderation. So if you talk about consuming coffee here, I think the consumption per capita, it could be less than a half a cup. But in those countries, the consumption per capita, you find that it's about 12 cups a day. Or so. So now you can see the difference. We really have an uphill task to convince everyone to tell them that coffee is not bad. Perhaps you have to take it in moderation. If you are in this condition, if you're a pregnant woman, maybe you may not have to take so many cups or so, or you dilute it to this level. But at least we have of late seen an increase in the consumption as opposed to years back.
All right, we have more comments coming in. We have a comment from Ephraim, teacher Ephraim, who is listening in from Nampunga. He says, "Good evening, Kenneth. If you want to improve on coffee growing in Uganda, let them come on ground to the last person growing coffee in villages. But for me, I blame the government of poor quality of coffee exported out of Uganda because it has failed to provide room or environment for coffee growers in the country." My question is, why are the prices of coffee still low, more especially to local growers, yet it is on, and yet it's being exported to the EU market? Maybe the EU is having a reason behind the law, and we may not just be able to understand what it is. That's a comment there. He says you need to go down to the local person. Prices are still low, and probably you need to do something for the farmers.
Oh, thank you. Interesting. 2 points to note here is actually one has to know that Uganda globally is the number 3 in quality of coffee traded. That's one fact. And
why are we not the first?
Well, we are not the first because, of course, we have a large number of smallholder farmers scattered everywhere, but also capacity to reach them is still limited, as he has highlighted. Secondly,
I don't think the issue is about having smallholder farmers. The issue is about the quality that we allow to leave this country, the quality of coffee.
These farmers need this support.
Do we have control measures?
The control measures in place, but also there is need for enforcement and actually reaching out to these farmers and sensitizing them. So with 1.8 million farmers scattered all over the country, and us having a skeleton staff, for example, to reach out to these farmers and sensitize them, so far the position we have gained at least gives us some positive mark on that. But also, you talk about prices being low. I think we have recorded the highest prices ever in terms of the price of coffee, for especially this year. So maybe the farmer did not benefit because he has no coffee now, but the prices are very good. For Robusta, Chiboko is selling about 6,000, while fair average quality FAQ is selling about 12 to 13,000. This is really a very good price.
That's per kilogram?
Yes, per kilogram. So, and those farmers who have been trading in coffee know very well that actually these prices are making them good. Recently, we had farmers from Masaka requesting that they should actually have an airfield now to be able to move to Kampala using air because of the money they are gaining. So in terms of prices, yes, there are many factors that affect pricing, and so the farmer should be aware. But on average,
do we have a mechanism to stabilize the prices just in case they go high and go down? Because that then affects the morale of the farmers. Do we have a system, a mechanism to ensure that when the prices go too low, the farmer still gets something out of it?
I think to be able to guarantee prices is investing in the quality of coffee traded, but also this tracing of coffee, traceable coffees are more give a good price than non-traceable coffees, because consumers are becoming more interested in traceable coffees because of health concerns. So we believe that, well, the EUDR, with its requirement to trace all the coffees, that will mean that we will have more traceable coffees in the country, and that will also mean higher premiums. So those are some ways we can guarantee that the market is, but also providing a conducive environment to ensure that we reduce the cost of production at the farm level.
All right, we have another comment coming in from Kamugo Fred Keta, listening in from Kira Municipality. He says, good evening, Spectrum. Recently, in the current budget, there were funds earmarked allegedly for training Ugandans on how to drink coffee. My question is, what is the criteria used for selecting Ugandans earmarked for that training? 2, are there some Ugandans who have benefited in the scheme by, e.g., by issuing certificates? And if yes, can you give examples? That's a question there about training Ugandans on how to drink coffee. It made headlines when it was about 16 billion. Are you the ones doing the training?
No. I think to the best of my knowledge, that budget was not located in the UCDA vote 160. We didn't see that money. And if it came through, then those who received money are perhaps in the best position to explain how that money was used.
David Ricina says, given the EU regulation, what is going to be the fate of people dealing in wild coffee that is harvested from forests? Wild coffee. Then we have another comment coming in from Benon Freddy Twinamasco, who writes in to say, how far is the training for Ugandans in the skills of drinking coffee so that we can be our own market? Lots of billions were released for coffee shops to be established. How are UCDA activities funded? That's a question there from Benon Fred Twinamasco. Those are 2 comments there that you need to respond to very quickly.
Oh, thank you very much. First of all, the fate of wild coffees. I think wild coffees, what he tries to mean here is they are already existing in the forest, and you have not cut down a forest to plant that coffee. You have not cut down a forest. The forest still exists. So, and such coffees have kind of a specialty market. So a special market where they are sold, and it may not necessarily be in the EU. And what farmers should also know is that, of course, not all coffee is sold in the EU, only about 63%. The other markets are still existent. But the challenge is if you don't comply, we will have incur costs in terms of processing this coffee separately, storing it separately, which will actually increase the cost of production. So the best thing is to ensure that all farmers are compliant so that you don't have the issues of costs in terms of processing separately, transporting separately, and trading that coffee separately.
All right. Another comment comes in. Will the forest geodata be shared publicly so that someone can be aware to avoid acquiring land that was for previously for forested area after 2020? Any directly available repository for all the information one can refer to? Is there a mechanism for self-registration on this?
Oh, thank you very much. One comfort I want to give to coffee farmers and the public is from the time we got this news about the EUDR enforcement, we did some bit of studies together with a research organization who are really experienced in conducting forest research and using satellite imagery and artificial intelligence. So we looked at Uganda in totality, because in our thinking we believed that if we map the entire country and identify all the coffee plots, we will be able to see which ones are non-compliant. So the results were really very, very impressive. They showed that actually Uganda is coffee growing does not significantly contribute to deforestation. However, the challenge we have is the burden of proof.
All right.
Can you prove that? That
traceability.
Is where it is. Yes.
All right. We have a comment coming in from Abe Kwizera, listening in from Kawempe. He says, I privately studied from nursery to university. I failed to get a job and use my small land to grow coffee using my own money, right from planting up to harvesting. Then why should the government have control over me and my coffee garden? Yet there is no government input in my coffee project. Why can't the government leave me to suffer with my own problems? 2, is that gentleman in studio able to guide us where we can get government freely provided robusta coffee cuttings so that we can use the opportunity to plant coffee for us who can't afford seedlings at 2,000 shillings per seedling. Why should the government regulate us, the private sector operators, yet government can't help us plant more coffee? That's Abe there with that very comment. There's another comment here. I think you need to take this one also. Somebody writes in and said, coffee is the leading cash crop in Uganda, and thanks for hosting UCDA staff. I can tell UCDA has finally survived the nightmare called merging. If we are to promote coffee, won't the government fail us with its exorbitant taxes? Can Ugandans benefit from the coffee tree growing cash fund? Finally, I strongly agree with Kenneth that quality is quite different from the tonnage. It's true Uganda is number 3 globally behind Ethiopia and Kenya. On tonnage, Brazil is global number 1. Therefore, UCDA has to do more on sensitizing farmers on improving on the quality. That's another comment there. Then we have another one. But Kenneth, when he talks of local consumption, even the few consumers are consuming imported coffee, especially in government offices. You hardly find there locally made coffee. We have another comment. Spectrum, I have a 30-acre coffee project and planting 5K indigenous trees on the farm. Part of the land had eucalyptus forest, which was cut in 2018. How does EUDR affect me? That's a comment from Michael there. I think those are the comments that have come in. Very quickly respond to them as we're getting closer to the end of this program.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I should start with Michael's question. The cutoff date for this regulation is anything grown after 2020. So for you cutting a forest in 2018, I think you have survived. Your coffee is compliant. But of course, you still have to maintain that coffee. You still have to grow it sustainably. Consumption of imported coffees, I think it is something that we have really strived to sensitize people in hotels by encouraging them to ask for local coffees, but it has to be a concerted effort. Kindly reject coffees that you feel are imported and consume local coffees, because actually they are of a better quality than those imported coffees. For example, if you talk about Nescafe, I'm sorry to mention this, but the coffee you gave me today was locally processed here, and it tasted really better. So it's very unfortunate that we feel that government regulation is bad, but actually government is here to protect the interests of everyone. You, the farmer, but also the interests of the consumers. If you are going to grow coffee, you may not have to sell it all through. You have to have people who are in between. So along the value chain, a number of people are involved, and that requires regulation in terms of ethics, business practices, integrity. So we come in so to protect the consumer and protect the farmer and everyone along the coffee value chain. So let's take it in a positive way that regulation is not intended to constrain the farmer or anybody involved, but to protect and provide a conducive environment for everyone to operate. We
have a comment coming in from Niwama, who says coffee is the real deal. I'm a beneficiary of CocoDev project. I thank UCDA for the greater strides, and any activities on the land greatly affect climate change. So we are coming to the end of this show. Let's give some parting shots for the farmer, the coffee farmer there, to understand what exactly awaits them with these EUDR regulations.
Okay, thank you very much, Kenneth. More importantly is I call upon all the farmers, all the value chain actors to embrace registration, and also to desist from going forward, to desist from cutting forests to plant coffee, because it will again have a bad negative effect on us. We need to be compliant, because the consequences are big. We may again encounter challenges like price differentials in terms of having compliant coffee and non-compliant coffee, but that's not what we want. We want to have all coffees, Uganda coffees compliant. So kindly let's embrace this. The deadline is short. Let's not think that taxation is the reason we are registering you, but we are fighting to maintain the market, the EU market, which is the largest.
David seems to be confused. He says both are trees, coffee and the trees that you're saying that should not be cut. What's the difference in the biodiversity? Why is it a concern when I cut down a forest and plant coffee, yet coffee is also a tree?
A natural forest or artificial planted forest has may have more biodiversity benefits than a coffee plantation, because if you look at a natural forest, it has many tree species, many animal species in there. But also, if you look in terms of the definition of tree canopy, you look in terms of the tree height and all the different benefits that accrue from that. Still, we believe that maintaining an existing forest is better than cutting a forest, say like for eucalyptus or pine.
All right, I'm afraid time is not our best ally. We have to bring this discussion to an end. I hope the doors of UCDA are open for farmers to actually walk in and get their issues sorted. Do you have regional offices? Can somebody find you in the regions?
Oh, yes. Thank you very much.
Quickly?
Like it has always been, UCDA offices on the Ginger Road, plot 37 are always open. We are available to provide information which anyone needs to engage in farming. UCDA has regional offices all over the country. We have a presence in all the districts, and our contacts are available. If you are in a particular region, you can contact the region office. We give you the contact to reach out for any support that you may need or to get any information that you may need. Thank you very much.
And with that, we come to the end of Spectrum. Thank you very much for coming in studio to explain to the coffee farmers about these new developments. And thank you very much, dear listeners, for actually tuning in and contributing